The door slammed in the storm. Snow bled into the room. The girl jerked her head and saw the black hat first, wet brim heavy with ice. Then the glove pressed her shoulder. The cowboy's voice cut low and rough, made harsher by the cold. "Both of you are mine now." Her breath fogged in the air. The baby clung to her chest, wailing sharp and thin. She pulled him tighter under the blanket. Her voice trembled but stayed steady. "We don't belong to men." The cowboy leaned closer, his breath clouding white against hers. "You belong to winter." Then, his hand didn't move from her shoulder. The smell of wet leather and smoke followed him inside. The storm seemed to hush around his words. The baby screamed louder. She rocked him against her chest, whispering, "Hush, little one." She turned her eyes on the man. "We'll walk. You'll freeze," he said flat. His lips barely moved. His eyes carried nothing. No warmth. No mercy. She stood still, letting the silence between them stretch. The wind howled through the gaps in the boards. Snow kept spilling across the floor in pale drifts. Her heart thumped like the hammer of a nail. His hand lifted finally, slow, deliberate. The weight left her shoulder, but his presence stayed heavy. "You waited for me?" he said. "No," she answered. "You opened the door." The storm opened it. His gaze sharpened, cutting her words in two. "You want me here? I want you gone." The baby coughed, then cried again, shrill as a knife scrape. The cowboy's eyes flicked down at the child. He tilted his head like a man appraising livestock. "He's weak. Won't last." "He'll last longer than you," she said. Her voice cracked, but she didn't flinch. His jaw worked slow. "You got his father's tongue." She stared at him, better than his silence. The cowboy stepped further in, boots grinding ice into the wood. He closed the door with one shove. The storm dulled outside, but the room felt smaller. His shadow spread across the wall, long and crooked from the lantern's flame. "You think walking saves you," he said. "I know staying kills me," she answered. The cowboy dragged a chair from the table, its legs screeching against the floor. He sat, hat still on, gloves dripping mud. He studied her with a quietness that pressed heavier than his words. "Sit," he ordered. She didn't move. "Sit," he said again, harder. The baby hiccuped, whimpering, small fists trembling. She kissed the child's damp hair. "We stand." His eyes narrowed. Defiance costs. Her throat tightened, but her feet rooted deeper into the floor. Submission costs more. A long silence followed. Only the hiss of the lantern, the soft rattle of wind, the restless crying of the child. The cowboy's shoulders slouched, as though the weight of his own words hung on him. He took off his gloves slow, finger by finger. His hand beneath was scarred, knuckles swollen from old fights. He flexed it once. "You think men like me need permission," he said. "You think girls like me give it." She fired back. His stare locked hers. Something unreadable passed, brief as a spark before it dies. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, voice a whisper now. "You walk into that storm, you'll carry him cold and dead before dawn." She shook her head. "I'd rather carry him dead than hand him living to you." The words cut the air clean. The baby cried louder, as if to mark them. The cowboy exhaled, long and tired. He rubbed the scar on his knuckles, then slapped his glove back on. "Pride don't warm bones." "No," she said, "but it keeps them from breaking." He stood. The chair scraped loud again. He paced slow toward the door. His boots thudded with finality. He stopped with his hand on the latch, shoulders stiff, back broad and dark against the stormlight bleeding in. "Last chance," he said. She didn't speak. "Choose me, or choose death." She rocked the baby tighter, pressing her cheek against his small face, heat against heat. "We choose each other." The cowboy didn't turn. His breath fogged once more in the pale air. Then he opened the door. Snow roared inside, filling the silence he left. The girl's knees shook, but she locked them firm. The baby's crying slowed, muffled in her arms. She kissed his head again and again, whispering, "We'll walk. We'll walk." The door slammed shut by the storm, sealing them alone once more. Her chest burned with fear and with resolve. She looked at the lantern, its small flame fighting shadows. Her breath came white. Her grip stayed hard. The snow would take her, maybe. The road would be merciless, likely. But the man in the black hat would never. Outside, his boots crunched into the white. The storm swallowed him, but his shadow lingered inside her mind. Long after the door closed, she wrapped the blanket tighter. She bent her head low, whispering to the child, "We don't belong to men." The baby shifted, warm still. His breath against her chest was proof enough. Her hand pressed the latch. The cold bit hard. The night opened before her, endless and white. She stepped into it, voice steady in the storm. "We'll walk." And the storm answered. Indifferent and endless, the door slammed against the storm, rattling the frame as if the night itself wanted to follow them inside. The girl stood near the threshold, clutching the baby, snow still clinging to her skirt. The cabin smelled of smoke and old iron. The cowboy set the bar across the door with a heavy scrape. The lock clicked. His shadow stretched in the dim lantern light. The girl's throat tightened. She pulled the baby closer, listening to the small hiccup in his chest. The fire in the stove snapped sharp, hungry like teeth. "Unlock it," she said, her voice flat. He didn't look at her. He knelt near the stove, stoking the fire with fresh wood. Sparks shot against the iron grate. "When you eat," he answered. "We leave after." His shoulders lifted once in a slow shrug. "If you can carry the night." The baby hiccuped again, softer now. She rocked him gently, eyes never leaving the man's back. The heat of the stove spread, thick and stifling after the cold. Her fingers stung as the blood warmed them. The ache worse than the freeze outside. He opened a tin, poured beans into a blackened pan. The sound of the thick paste hitting iron filled the silence. He moved slow, like a man with nothing rushing him. "You said you want nothing," she whispered. He turned his head, just enough to see her in the corner of his eye. "I said it." "Then why the lock?" His jaw tightened. He stirred the pan with a wooden spoon, the scrape echoing. "Storm takes doors. Better shut than open. Better free than trapped." He didn't reply. He poured water from a dented kettle, steam rising as it hit the pan. The smell of beans filled the air, heavy and earthy. The girl swayed with the baby, his hiccups softening into a small sigh. Her arms ached, but she would not set him down. She watched the cowboy's every move, waiting for a slip. For a weakness, he set 2 bowls on the table, old enamel chipped along the rims. He ladled food into each, steam curling like smoke from a gun barrel. He gestured with his chin. "Sit." She shook her head. "Feed him first." The cowboy stared, then nodded once. He tore a piece of stale bread and placed it beside her bowl. "As you will." She adjusted the blanket, lifted a bit of bread, soaked it in the broth, cooled it with her breath, pressed it to the baby's lips. He sucked weakly, swallowing small. She kept her focus on him, not the man watching. "You walk into the storm. He don't last," the cowboy said. "He lasts as long as I keep him warm, and when you can't, then I bury him with my hands, not yours." The cowboy's eyes flickered, but his face stayed hard. He sat across the table, spoon in hand, eating slow. The scrape of metal against enamel filled the silence. The fire popped behind him, shadows twitching across the walls. The girl sat finally, still cradling the baby. She dipped the spoon, tasted, chewed, swallowed. Warmth spread through her chest, unwelcome but needed. Her hands trembled around the bowl. He watched her eat, every bite, his own movements steady, unbroken. "You think I keep you here," he said low. You locked the door. You asked for heat. I gave it. Heat for chains, she snapped. His spoon paused. He set it down slow. If I wanted chains, you'd hear them. The girl's eyes narrowed. You want something else? The cowboy leaned back in his chair, boots heavy on the floor. I want nothing. No man wants nothing. Then I'm not a man. Her breath caught. She studied him, the lines in his face, the hollowness in his eyes. He didn't blink. The baby stirred, whimpered. She rocked him against her chest, humming low. Storm breaks by morning, the cowboy said. Then we leave at first light. If you can carry him through snow, I'll carry him through fire if I must. The cowboy's mouth twitched like a smile, but it died quick. He rose, set his bowl on the stove, poured the last of the broth inside. He wiped his hands on his trousers. Rest, he said. Open the door. He shook his head once. Not tonight. She stood, her chair scraping, baby clutched tighter. Then I'll sit by the door. He stepped closer. You'll freeze by the door. I'll freeze standing, not sleeping under your roof. They faced each other, heat of the stove between them, storm pressing against the walls outside. The cowboy's hand twitched toward the lock, then stopped. His voice dropped to a whisper. Survive first. Fight after. Her lips tightened. We do both. The baby sighed again, tiny body slack with sleep. She kissed his head, eyes never leaving the cowboy. He turned finally, back to her, pulling another log for the fire. The snap of wood breaking echoed like a bone. She sank slowly into the chair near the door, arms around the child, eyes sharp on the man. The lock gleamed in the lantern light. Her hunger dulled, her resolve sharpened. The cowboy fed the stove, sat again, silent. Shadows stretched and swayed on the walls. The girl whispered to the baby's ear, words too soft for the man to hear. His little hiccup came again, faint, fragile. The cowboy lifted his eyes once more. If you can carry the night, he repeated. Her stare cut back. I will. The stove flared, sparks licking the grate. The storm outside roared, but inside the cabin the silence was heavier than the snow. She did not blink. He did not move. The fire snapped like teeth, waiting. The baby stirred in her arms, small breaths puffing warm against her chest. The fire in the stove snapped again, sparks twitching in the dark. Her eyes drifted over the wall, over the blackened boards, over the streaks of smoke. Then she saw it. A badge hung crooked from a bent nail beside the stove, half buried in soot. The metal pitted and scarred like it had been dragged through fire. Her throat tightened. She rocked the child, eyes fixed on the thing. The shine that once marked order was gone, dulled into something dead. Whose badge? She asked. The cowboy didn't move. He sat in the chair, boots stretched, face in shadow. A dead man's. Yours. His jaw flexed. Not anymore. Why? He leaned forward, elbows on knees, staring into the fire instead of her. Because Law died first. The girl's eyes stayed on the badge. It seemed to watch back, reflecting just enough light to glint each time the stove cracked. The baby whimpered, and she pressed her lips to his head, whispering soft. But her own breath came shallow, uneasy. She shifted her weight, eyes darting to the window. The latch looked old, rust clinging to the hinge. She eased toward it, rocking the baby to mask the movement. Her fingers touched the wood. Cold bled through the glass. Behind her, the cowboy's voice rumbled low. Window sticks. She froze, hand on the frame. Storm-packed snow in the cracks, he added. She pressed the latch anyway. It rattled faint, but the frame held fast. She turned her head, slow. He hadn't moved from the chair, but his eyes were on her now. You pretend not to see, she said. I see. Everything, he answered. Her stomach nodded. She rocked the baby harder, as if the rhythm could cover her nerves. The badge glimmered again, soot coating its face, edges warped from fire. She swallowed. You wore it? He said nothing. You carried it like it meant something. His gaze didn't flinch. Once what broke it? Not what, who. She waited. He leaned back, chair groaning under him. Men who called themselves deputies. Men who counted bodies like cattle. Men who buried names under ledgers. And you. I stood with them. Her chest hollowed. She gripped the baby tighter. So you killed for it. His eyes lowered, heavy. Killed for nothing. The fire hissed, a log splitting, sparks showering the grate. She shifted, eyes on the badge, then on him. You hung it there like a warning, she said. Like a mirror, he corrected. Her voice sharpened. I don't want mirrors. His head tilted. Then don't look. The baby whimpered again, small fists twitching. She kissed his cheek, but her eyes never left the badge. Its dull surface caught her reflection, blurred and warped. Does it haunt you? She asked. The cowboy rubbed his scarred knuckles. Nothing haunts me. Liar. He met her eyes then, sharp. You don't get to call me that. I already did. The room thickened. Heat from the stove pressed against her skin. The baby squirmed. Her breath came hard. She whispered, You keep it because you can't bury it. He didn't answer. You keep it because you still want it. His voice dropped. Rough. Want what? Power. He stood then, sudden, boots pounding the floor. He walked to the stove, leaned close, staring at the badge like it could burn him twice. His shadow swallowed the wall. I want nothing, he said. She rose, clutching the baby, backing toward the door. No man wants nothing. He turned, eyes blazing. Then I'm not a man. The baby cried, sharp at the sound. She rocked him, heart hammering. Her back pressed to the door. The lock dug cold into her shoulder. She whispered, Then what are you? He didn't move. The fire snapped between them. His voice came low, almost broken. I'm what's left when law dies. Her breath caught. She looked again at the badge, hanging limp, smoke-stained and bent. It gleamed faint, distorted dot. She held the child tighter. Then you're dead too. His lips parted, but no words came. He turned back to the stove, shoulders hunched. The badge swung slightly on its nail, as if stirred by breath alone. The girl sat slowly on the chair by the door, never setting the baby down. Her eyes stayed locked on the badge. It blurred her shape, bent her face, made her smaller than she was. She whispered to the child, voice shaking, Don't look, little one. Don't ever look. The cowboy sat again, silent, staring at the fire. Shadows crawled over his face, carving him into something less than human. The badge glinted once more, soot hiding most of its shine, but enough remained to make the room feel colder. Neither of them spoke again. The baby's hiccup broke the silence, small and fragile against the weight of what hung on that nail. Dawn came thin and gray. She eased the latch and slipped outside while he split wood by the sheds. She held the baby tight under the blanket, his breath warm against her skin. She went to the well. The rope was frayed to hair. The bucket's rim was scarred. Frost clung to the crank. She set the baby higher in her arm and touched the rope. Cold jumped into her bones. She leaned over the stones and listened. A dull echo rose, slow as breath under ice. Her mother's voice uncoiled. Don't drink secrets. Water remembers what men forget. She turned the handle. The wood squealed. The rope groaned. From the sheds he called, without looking up, thirsty. His axe rose and fell. For answers, she said. The baby stirred and made a small sound. She rocked him, eyes on the dark mouth. Water's safer, he called. Not if it remembers, she said. Then don't listen, he said. She lowered the bucket. Rope rubbed like teeth over the beam. The bucket slid down and vanished. She felt the depth waiting, a hole tied to the house. He paused at last and watched her across the yard. You'll freeze your hands, he said. They've been colder, she answered. The rope slackened, then tightened, when the bucket found water. A faint splash rose, and the well went still. Her mother crouched by another well in summer heat. Don't drink secrets, child. The town poisons its own reflection. Because water wants company. Because it waits and holds. She began to raise the bucket. It climbed inch by inch, heavy with what lay below. He walked closer, axe on his shoulder. He stopped a few paces away, breath pale. You never asked what's down there, he said. I can hear it, she said. What do you hear? Names. You don't know names. I know the way silence says them. That rope breaks. You follow it down, he said. I won't. You might. Then you pull me out. No one pulls anyone out. The bucket rose into view, metal sweating cold. She set the handle and reached for the wire. He moved, then stopped, and held the axe. She hauled the bucket to the lip and let it rest. Water trembled and stilled. You think it remembers me, he said. It does, she said. What does it say? Sheriff, she said. Deputy, widow, and a boy who didn't know he was counted. His mouth went still. You hear too much. I hear enough. He leaned near the well. It's only water, he said. It's only every throat it touched. She dipped a tin cup and held it to the baby's mouth. He sipped. His soft hiccup came again, lighter this time. You should pour that out, he said. Why? Because sometimes it gives back. I want what it gives. You won't like it. I don't like anything. They stood with the well between them. A small ripple traced the surface. Who taught you to fear a hole in the ground? She asked. Graves. Then you know why I'm looking. You won't find a man in there. I'll find what he left, which is proof of what? That he was here. That someone knew. That someone drank and kept quiet. You think I kept quiet? I think you can't stop hearing it. You're wrong. Then leave me. He didn't. He put another log on the block. Drink and go inside, he said. Your hands shake. I won't drink. Then why pull it up? To see who looks back. He lifted the axe high and held. Does it speak now? It breathes, she said. What does it breathe? Cold, she said. And names. And a word I don't know yet. Let it keep the word, he said. She dipped again, then stopped. The surface had gone strange. Not a face. Just a darker place moving at the edge, slow as a thought. Her neck prickled. She whispered without meaning to. Mama. He stiffened. What? Nothing, she said, and poured the cup onto the snow, watching it melt a small circle to dirt. Steam rose. You hear ghosts, he said. I hear us, she said. I hear what we let happen. You weren't here. I was born here, she said. Even if you didn't see it. He raised the axe again and paused, thirsty for answers, she said. Water's safer, not if it remembers. He set his jaw. Then don't listen. She tied the bucket and lowered it once more to hear the rope move and feel the well breathe cold. Her mother's voice pressed warm between her shoulders. Don't drink secrets. She mouthed back. I won't. I will only ask them to rise. He walked toward the door. Bring the boy in, he said. I'll make a fire for washing. She watched him, then looked into the dark, daring it to tell her one more thing. The well did not speak. It breathed slow and patient. She lifted the bucket and turned toward the house, the baby warm against her, the rope rough under her palm. The baby gave a soft hiccup, then settled. Her fingers burned, then went numb, the echo following like a thin, cold thread into the room. She refused to call safe slowly. Her baby crawled along the hearth, palms skidding through ash. She caught him and wiped his fingers. A board near the stones sat higher than the rest. She pressed the lip and felt it give. Heat had warped it, leaving a small, dark mouth. She slid her fingers in and pinched paper. It rasped like dry bark. She drew it out. The fold was stiff. Brown stains marked the creases. The corner tore. She didn't breathe until it lay open on her knees. The cowboy sat kindling on the table and watched without speaking. The baby bumped his heel against her knee. She kept her eyes on the page. Ink had faded to the color of weak tea. The words were careful and square, addressed to a governor's office far away. Names lined the middle. Men who bought girls. Men who silenced mothers. Her mother's name sat near the end. A small ache opened under her ribs and stayed. "You hid this," she said. "I kept it," he said. "Same thing. Different heart. Prove it." He didn't come closer. "By not burning it," he said. "By not selling it to men who want to stay clean. By waiting for someone who could carry it without dying." He nodded at the page. "You?" She traced the addressee. It was never mailed. No one trusted stamps. Who wrote it? A widow, or a woman learning to be one. Why hide it here? Because men hunt firelight. They don't stoop to ash. She lifted the loose board again and felt in the hollow. Nothing else waited, only splinters and a cold nail. The badge on the bent nail by the stove threw a dull wink. She looked back at the letter. A line at the bottom had been pressed hard. "The well holds what the town won't." Her mouth went dry. "Why is my mother listed?" she asked. "Because she spoke," he said. "To who?" "To anyone who would listen, and the men who wouldn't. And you." I stood in a doorway and let words pass me. Heat from the stove pressed her shins. "You were the law. I was the habit of it." She read the names again. Road fees, parson, auction yard, school board. "They traded in daylight," he said. Her thumb found a smear. "What are these stains? A table? A hand?" A night someone came to the door. She folded the page and unfolded it. The baby hummed and reached. She kissed his head and pulled the paper away. "You kept it because you were afraid," she said. "I kept it because fear needed a bed that wasn't a girl," he said. "Words," she said. "A start." She set the baby in the crate he had made. The boy blinked, then curled his fist. She slid the letter inside her coat and felt its edge tap her collarbone. "I'm taking it to the courthouse," she said. "You'll find cracked flags and a clerk who lost his hearing," he said. "Then I'll nail it to the door. A door is easy to replace. Then I'll read it in the square. Your breath will freeze. Not today." He moved a step toward her. "You want revenge? I want to count," she said. "I want this town to say each name and choke." He studied her. "Let me come. So they look at you and call it history. So they look at me and have to remember." She glanced at the badge. "If you touch that, you make yourself sheriff again. I won't. If you stand behind me, you make yourself witness. I can do that." She listened for the well beneath the house, and for a second heard it breathe. Her mother's voice rose with it. "Don't drink secrets. Feed them to the day." She steadied her hands. "Open the door," she said. He lifted the bar. Cold rushed the seams. Snow lighted the floor. The baby made a small sound and went quiet. She paused at the threshold. "Different heart," she said. "Prove it." He reached for the letter and then stopped and opened his hand empty. "I'll prove it by walking one step behind and keeping my mouth shut until yours is finished," he said. "And if they bring rope, I'll carry it." She weighed the promise. It wasn't heavy, but it had shape. She nodded. "Stay behind me," she said. "Where first?" "The pump by the square," she said. "Water carries voices. Water also keeps them. Not today." She lifted the baby, tucked him tighter, and stepped into the cold. The paper scraped like a thorn against her skin. Behind her, the cowboy set his hat low and followed her shadow. The stove settled, and the badge on its nail turned a fraction, catching a little light and giving none back. She shut the door, heard the wind take it, and felt the letters settle like small iron inside her coat, a thing that could warm or wound, depending on who dared to hold it in daylight when she finally spoke. Wind shoved the ridge and tried to push them back. She kept the baby strapped close and climbed after him, boots grinding frozen dirt. He said nothing. His breath came white. They reached the cedar cross. It was small, split, the tips burned black. The mound beneath rose a hand high. She stopped. The baby breathed warm against her collarbone. "Whose grave?" she asked. He stared at the cross. "Mine," he said, voice buckling. "And not mine." "Say what you mean." "A sister once lived." He swallowed. "A sister once vanished. Did you try to find her?" she asked. "I burned the badge, trying," he said, "and failed." "Not done failing yet. Then start over." She walked fast, he said, talked fast, laughed at stuck doors, fed boys who lied about being hungry, loved a black horse that hated rain. What happened to her? She came home late twice. The third night, she didn't. Who took her? Men who traded daylight, he said. Men on the letter. Men who counted us like fence posts and called it order. And you were the law. I was a set of keys, he said. Every lock slid open when they asked. She felt the letter under her coat like a flat stone. "Where did you look?" "Wells," he said. "Sheds. The school cellar. The auction yard. The parson's rooms. The jail. Empty, but for the smell of old rope. I looked at my hands and found them clean. They weren't." "No," he said. "They weren't." She touched the burned tip. "This is wrong. The fire." "The size?" she said. "This grave is small." He nodded. "She had a boy," he said. "Small." He coughed when it rained. She felt the baby shift. Heat rose under her ribs. "Where is he?" "Gone with her," he said. "Or buried here. I never knew. You didn't dig." "I was afraid to find a truth I could name," he said, "and afraid to find nothing." She faced him. "We dig, ground is iron. Then we mark it and come back with tools. You will be seen. Let them see." He looked toward town, smoke lying over roofs. "They will bring shovels for show, and questions with teeth. I have teeth too. You have a baby. He has a mother," she said. "And his mother has this letter." He nodded at her coat. "Read it here," he said. "Why?" "Because men don't hear on a ridge. The dead hear clean." She pulled the letter out and broke the fold. Wind tugged at the page. She pinned a corner with her knee and read the names, steady. Her words went down the slope and came back thin, but there. The last line shook in her mouth. "The well holds what the town won't." He closed his eyes. "Say my sister's name," he said. She searched the page. "It isn't here." His eyes opened. "Raw. How can that be?" "Because the names belong to buyers," she said. "Not to what they stole." He laughed and stepped back. "Then she belongs to nobody." "She belongs to you," she said, "and to the dirt that remembers weight." He braced his hands on his thighs. "The badge, the letter, the grave," he said. "One story with missing teeth. Then let it chew anyway," she said. His gaze slid to the baby. "You'll feed it." "I will feed it names until it chokes," she said. "The clerk will stamp and yawn." "Let him," she said. "He'll have to look." "The sheriff will smirk." "Let him," she said. "I'll read until his mouth dries." He pointed to the burned tips. "This cross didn't start the fire. Someone lit it." "Who?" "Someone who wanted the ridge to warn us," he said. "Or someone who hid smoke against snow." She saw a hand with a match. Her own for a blink. Then gone. "We should go," he said. "Not yet," she said. "Say goodbye to her." He stood stiff, then softened. "I gave you no road," he told the cross. "No lock that held. A brother who counted doors instead of names." She let him empty. The baby fussed. She rocked him and pressed her cheek to his hat. "She forgives you," she said. "You don't know that. The ridge knows. It knows wind. It knows where feet stopped." He looked down. "I will fail again. Then start over. He breathed and nodded. We start with the clerk. We start with the ridge, she said. We stack stones so anyone passing has to count with us. They found rocks along the trail and built a ring until the mound rose higher, until it said child to any eye. He set the last one with 2 hands and held it like a prayer until the wind shoved him back. Now the clerk, she said. And if he laughs, then I read, she said. Then I put this letter on his ledger and let the ink crawl across his hands. And if they bring rope, you carry it, she said, and drop it in the well. He almost smiled. Not done failing yet. Start over, she said, and turned him toward town, the ridge at their backs. The cross burned black at the tips, the baby breathing. Every step a small strike against the story with missing teeth that still tried to bite as they walked into the wind. Boards on the walk clapped under their boots as they crossed town. She held the baby close and felt the letter scrape her collarbone. He stayed half a step behind. The sheriff's office opened into his kitchen through a warped door. Coffee steamed. He stirred it like he stirred trouble. Slow circles, spoon tapping tin. Where'd you steal that? He said without turning. From my shame, the cowboy said, setting the folded letter on the table. From your pocket, she said, laying her hand on it. Both sound illegal, the sheriff said. He set the pot aside and faced them. You two aren't saints. So does selling girls, she said. The sheriff took the letter and read. His mouth moved in a low line that cooled the room. When he finished, he let the page hang and nodded at the child. He a witness. He's a reason, she said. Reasons cry, he said. Then someone made him, she answered. The cowboy didn't sit. His hands stayed on the chair back, knuckles white. The sheriff folded the page, then laid it flat again. You kept this, he said to the cowboy. I did. Same sin as writing it. Different heart. Prove it, she said. The sheriff tapped a name. Your mother's listed, he said. She spoke, she said. She spoke to the wrong ears. She spoke to yours, she said. You married into the governor's circle by kitchen door, if not church aisle. Marriage and money run this county. Money keeps roofs on, he said. It keeps locks on girls, she said. He winced. You don't know the weight of a town. I know the weight of a grave, she said. Small mound on the ridge. Cedar cross burned black at the tips. He looked at the window. The baby hiccuped and went quiet. He pressed the letter with his palm, like he could smooth the names back into silence. Where'd you really find it? He asked. By the stove, the cowboy said. Under a board, I hid and couldn't forget. And why bring it here? Because law died first, the cowboy said. I'm tired of standing at its grave. You wore my star once, the sheriff said. I wore a habit, the cowboy said. The sheriff's breath grew loud in the small room. What do you want? A count, she said. Names spoken out loud. Written on the courthouse board. At noon. By me. You think the governor will applaud? He can read from his porch, she said. Or pretend he can't and hear it from the well when it gives the echo back. You think water keeps score. It remembers what men forget. Then don't listen. I already did, she said. He lifted a badge from a nail and weighed it, then hung it again. If I call this stolen evidence, you go to jail. If you call it stolen, the cowboy said, I call it mine. If you say jail, she said, I say square. He looked between them. You aren't scared. I am, she said. I'm louder. He slid the letter into an envelope and wrote with a blunt pencil, for posting. His hand stayed on it as if it could fly. Noon, he said at last. Pump stones in the square. I'll keep hands off you while you read. You'll stand with us, the cowboy asked. I'll stand where a sheriff should, he said, between names and knives. Different heart, she told the cowboy, watching the sheriff. Maybe. The sheriff drank his coffee. The governor's boy sits on the bank board, he said. His brother keeps the jail keys. Their wives run the school hall and the charity table. Every street in this town bends to their gate. Streets can turn, she said, only if boots take them, he said. Then watch ours, she said. We walk at noon. He looked at the child. He shouldn't hear this. He already has, she said. He heard it from the water. What does the water say? Names, and that the rope is frayed. If they bring rope, the sheriff said. They'll bring it smiling. I'll carry it, the cowboy said, and I'll drop it in the well, she said. He stamped the envelope with his fist like a seal. You'll make enemies you can't count. Then count louder, she said. He took his coat and buckled his gun. At noon I'm law again, he said. You mean it, the cowboy said. I mean I'm tired, the sheriff said, of stirring coffee and calling that order. She opened the kitchen door. Cold climbed in and set the cup steaming. People on the boardwalk paused. She lifted the baby, felt his breath on her throat, and felt the letters scrape through her coat. Noon, she said. Noon, the sheriff answered. Noon, the cowboy echoed. They stepped onto the hollow boards, wind taking their edges. The governor's name heavy as iron in the air, and she planned to strike it until the town finally heard its ring. She would not miss the mark. The sheriff's radio crackled on the wall, a thin insect sound that made the room hold its breath. She stood with the baby on her hip and the letter flat against her ribs, staring at the ledger like a shut gate. Women crowded the doorway, scarves knotted on hair, faces set. The cowboy posted himself behind her, hat low. The sheriff tapped his pencil once. Count them, she said. His eyes narrowed. Why? So the dead can hear. The radio popped again. He set his palm on the book, opened to the middle. You'll drown this town, he said. Start talking, lawman, the cowboy said. Name, she said. Parson Hale. The sheriff read. Night, harvest fair, year of the blight. A murmur ran through the women. Second, auction master Vic. Night, after the flood, when the church dried its floors. Third, Deputy Marr. Night, 3 winters back, snow like now. Fourth, school chair Fisk. Night, graduation eve. The baby blinked at the lamp. She kept her voice even. Keep going, he read. Names fell into the air with nights attached like stones. Election week, drought prayers, a barn fire, a hymn. The women did not move. Scarves shifted, spines straightened. She watched the pencil crawl and felt anger sharpen like cold. Stop, she said. He stopped. Now the mothers, she said. He turned to a smaller column near the back. Speak them, she said. Nora Pell. Night, county dance. Next, Leanne Burke. Night, when the governor's boy bought apples for the church. An older woman stepped forward. I am Leanne. You are counted, the girl said. The sheriff read more. At a blank he lowered the pencil. That's all written, but not all, she said. The radio hissed and went quiet. Add my sister, the cowboy said. Name, May. Night. Third night, after the rain quit. She swallowed. Add boy unknown. The pencil scratched. Add my mother, she said. He looked up. She's listed as witness. Count what it cost her, she said. He wrote. Women pressed closer. A gray braid slipped from a scarf. Now read the column aloud, she said. He read. Names and nights and excuses. The room cooled as if the stove backed away. Men in the hall fell silent. When he finished, no one moved. Add the governor's family, she said. Gasps lifted. On what authority? He asked. On the money that moved these nights. Money isn't a man, it has hands, the cowboy said. Write the house if you fear the name. The pencil hovered, then wrote the house. Add prices, she said. We don't keep that. You kept it in your head. He stared at the paper. You'll drown this town. Then they can learn to swim. Outside, the women answered with a low hum. Post it, the cowboy said. The sheriff slid the ledger beside the letter he had marked for posting. At noon, he said. Now, she said. He studied her and found no give. He gathered both pages. Door, he told the cowboy. The door opened. Cold pushed in with the smell of horses and smoke. Faces filled the hall. She set her hand on the ledger. You're brave, a woman whispered. I'm tired, she said. They stepped onto the boards. The square waited pale. They climbed the pump steps. The sheriff lifted the book. Hear the count. Speak it slow, she said. He spoke. Names rolled into the cold and did not fall. Windows opened. Hinges groaned. A boy on a roof stopped sweeping. She listened for the well and heard breath in the pause between names. She thought of the ridge, and the cross burned black, and the child who coughed in rain. The cowboy stood one step behind, a coil of rope on his arm, because habit dies last. The women pressed near the stones until their scarves touched. When the sheriff reached the house at the top, he hesitated. She nodded. He read it. Wind took the word and carried it to every porch. Someone clapped once, hard. It spread, not as applause, but warning. She lifted her chin. Again. The sheriff looked at the town, then at the ledger, and began from the start, while the baby slept, and the day opened its cold ear to every story they could raise. The radio crackled again like a match failing. The sheriff squared his shoulders and raised his voice. Law is listening. So are the dead, she said. The cowboy shifted the rope and stared at the well mouth beyond the pump. If they bring knots, I bring water. If they bring money, I bring names, she said. A church bell tested one note and stopped. The sheriff turned a page. There is more, he said. Then say more, she answered. He read, slower. Names kept coming. She felt the letter's edge bite her collarbone. We keep counting until dark, she said. And after, the cowboy said. And after, the sheriff echoed. And his voice no longer sounded like coffee, but like iron ready. They threw the barn doors open and let the cold walk in. Lanterns hung from the rafters, steady yellow eyes that made the dust float. No judge waited, only neighbors and ghosts. The floor showed raw boards scuffed by hooves. The women climbed a ladder and tied scarves to the beams like flags. She held the baby and felt his weight steady her spine. The sheriff stood at a table with the ledger and the letter. The cowboy uncoiled rope and kept near the doors. Old men in Sunday coats slid along the wall like shadows that had learned to talk. An elder pointed his cane at the table. Shut this down. She didn't blink. Make me. The clutch of men rustled. The governor's man cleared his throat. Child. The cowboy's voice cut the lantern heat. She's not yours to name. The scarves stirred in a draft. Outside, a windmill creaked. The sheriff touched the book with 2 fingers like he was taking an oath. We do this clean, he said. We speak. We listen. We count. The elder tapped his cane again. You will stop. The women answered from the beams together, low and steady. Count the sins? Her mouth felt dry, but her voice came clear. We start with the names already said in the square. The sheriff opened the ledger. Paper gave a small sigh. He read, Parson, Deputy, Chair, Auctionman, Banker, Foreman, Teacher. Each name dropped into the room and found a place to sit. The elder smiled without warmth. Stories, he said. Hunger, dressed as truth. She took one step toward him. Truth is hungry because you kept the table empty. A murmur rose from the women along the beams. The baby shifted, then settled against her shoulder. The cowboy stood where the light thinned toward the doors. You hear your own name yet? He asked the line of coats. Several men coughed into their gloves. The sheriff kept reading. Heat gathered despite the open doors. She passed the baby to a woman with careful wrists and stepped forward until her boots met a chalk line scratched across the floor. We will not trade this in kitchens, she said. We will not sell it for winter coal. We will not wait for the well to speak for us. The elder rattled the cane on the boards. This is no court. It is better, she said. It remembers who lives here. It forgets who pays here, he said. Not today. The governor's man came closer, ring bright as a small sun. You have a talent for noise, he said. Noise makes thieves careful, she said. We prefer peace, he said. You prefer quiet, she answered. There is a difference. The cowboy moved beside the sheriff, shoulder to shoulder. The elder hissed like a kettle. You do not know the price of running a county. I know the price we paid, she said. We marked it on a ridge with a cedar cross, burned black at the tips. Wind pressed the doors. Somewhere a horse tossed its head against rope. The sheriff set the ledger down and wiped his brow. We will hear the women. A braid stepped forward. I am Leanne. I was counted. Another spoke. They told me to pray louder. Another. They told me the bank would forgive if I smiled. Another. They told me the school was safe. The elder rolled his eyes. Lies stack easy in winter. She looked at the sheriff. Arrest him. The sheriff's hand twitched toward his belt. The governor's man laughed. On what charge? She kept her gaze on the elder. Fraud of kindness. Sale of silence. Holding the keys. While girls were weighed like sacks. The elder did not move. No. The cowboy loosened the rope on his arm. He asked nays, he said. The barn hushed so deep she could hear the lantern wicks burn. The sheriff's radio crackled on a peg by the door, a thin voice asking if the square was calm. He ignored it. Step forward, he told the elder. The old man took 2 slow paces. His keys clanked at his belt. She saw their weight and felt a flash of the wells dark under her feet. She wanted to cut the keys loose and throw them until the cold swallowed the ring. Ask him who bought, the cowboy said. She faced the elder. Who bought? He shrugged. Men of respect. Men who donate. Men who do not hide at the edge of town. Name one. He smiled with his mouth closed. The cowboy pointed. Governor's man. The ring flashed. Careful, the man said. I am careful, she said. That is why we stand in a barn and not your parlor. The women on the beams let a small laughter shake the scarves. The governor's man showed both hands, empty, and still managed to shine. The sheriff raised his voice. We vote on posting the count on the courthouse door until each line is answered. The elder swung his cane through the air. This is nonsense. She waited and let silence grow teeth. Who was afraid to lift a hand in light? Hands rose, first the women, then a few men, then more, when the sheriff lifted his own. The governor's man kept his arms close, ring burning like a coal. You bind yourselves to a mob, he said. We bind ourselves to memory, she said. Memory cannot govern, he said. Money should not, she said. The radio crackled again, louder. A young voice said, riders were coming from the big house. The barn stiffened. The sheriff swallowed. You have enemies you cannot count, he said. Count them, she said. He tried a thin smile. You will drown this town. She stepped closer so only he heard. Then help me teach it to swim. He nodded once. He looked at the cowboy. If they bring knots, I bring water, the cowboy said. If they bring guns, she said. Bring the badge you buried. He glanced at a nail on a post. He took the star and set it on his chest. The barn inhaled. The elder spat. Traitor. The sheriff squared his shoulders. Law was never your cane. The governor's man lifted both hands where all could see. I am not afraid, he said. You should be, she said, because the dead do not get tired. Lantern light clicked along the ring and along the star, and along the edge of the ledger, as if the metal itself had decided to listen. The baby whimpered and settled, as if even sleep wanted to hear. She stepped onto a grain crate used as a stand. She felt the letter bite her collarbone and found her voice. "We read until they arrive," she said. "When they come, we keep counting." The women answered together, firm and plain. "Count the scenes." The sheriff lifted the lantern higher. The cowboy faced the doors and listened for hoofbeats under the wind. Outside, snow began again, light and stubborn, drifting at the threshold of a trial no judge could halt. A boy climbed a stall and stared with wide eyes, one boot untied. She read. Names fell into the barn like stones into a well. Nights followed them. Prices kept in silence became sound. The elder covered one ear. The governor's man stared without blinking. The radio crackled once more and died. Boots pounded on the road. She turned a page and another. "We are not done," she said. "We are not done failing," the cowboy said. "Then start over," she said. The doors trembled. The scarves along the rafters moved like breath. She kept reading, line by line, while the town that called itself decent stood in the lantern light and found there was nowhere left to look but at itself. The lantern tipped and went wide, a clean wall of heat, without smoke, that shoved the air out of the barn and made every face shine hard. She clutched the baby. His panic kicked against her ribs. The boy from the stall screamed and reached for the beam. The cowboy moved first, throwing his coat around both children and turning his back to the blaze. Scarves along the rafters snapped in the updraft. Dust rose, bright as grit, then vanished. The sheriff froze with the ledger open. The governor's man lifted his ring like a blessing and found no God in it. Women formed a bucket line from the pump. Water leaped, hissed, and died. The heat held, clean and sure, like judgment that didn't need smoke to be true. "I was told to obey," the sheriff said, voice shredded by the wall. "By who?" she said. "Blood older than mine." The cowboy didn't turn his head. "Whose ring?" The sheriff stared at the seal. "The seal you fear." The baby wailed in short bursts. The boy gagged. The cowboy tucked both faces into his shirt and rocked, carving a small shelter with his body, while the wall leaned closer without burning, anything it didn't choose. "Say the names," she said. The sheriff cracked. "Parson Hale, third harvest after blight, $2 a head and a promise of him. Deputy Marr, winter of rope, paid with hay and iron. Vic at the yard, 4 girls counted as freight and written in chalk. Fisk, graduation eve, $5 to the school fund to pretty the book. Banker Sutter, drought year, grain credit for smiles, interest forgiven in whispers. Foreman Clint, flood month, 3 in one night behind the mill." Each name struck the heat and stuck. The beams darkened where the words hit, as if sound could brand wood and stay. "Prices," she said. He swallowed and kept going. A sack of seed per child, a winter coat for silence, 2 barrels of nails for the church roof, $10 to the widow box that never reached a widow. 1 horse traded for a boy told to work off his debt. My own coffee and quiet for years. The elder whispered and counted the boards with his cane. The governor's man tried to smile and found he couldn't make a mouth. The radio on the peg spat about riders, then died. Hooves pushed at the wind outside. The heat leaned closer, steady, without smoke, like it was waiting for one more lie to feed on. "Tell the house what it bought," she said. The sheriff bared his teeth like cutting a knot. "It bought quiet. It bought patience. It bought the word decent and nailed it to the church door. It bought me." "We brought grain and drought," the governor's man said. "With strings," she answered. "We brought law," he said. "To your own gates," she said. The sheriff lifted the badge like a cup and raised his voice. "This barn is a court until the snow quits falling." "By what right?" the elder snapped. "By the count," he said. "By the dead who refused to leave. By the mother who wrote and the girl who reads." Women shoved the big doors wide until the wind shoved back. Cold chewed the threshold and made the wall of heat take a step no one could see. The baby's cry thinned to hiccups. The boy hid his face and went still. Buckets ran hand to hand. Water flared and vanished. "It isn't burning," the cowboy said. "It's deciding." "We don't stop," a woman answered. "Dates," she said. The sheriff flipped pages and spat them like rope out of his teeth. Harvest Fair, year of blight, moonless and hot. After the flood, church floor still wet. 3 winters back, day the wind broke fences. The Sunday the bell cracked. The night the school hung lanterns for the scholars. The day the bank forgave a farmer before taking his daughter. The line sank into the table grain and made it dark. She watched the wood keep them and did not doubt the keeping. He shut the ledger like it could blister him. "Me," he said, voice flat. "For each time I stirred coffee instead of trouble." A silence deeper than the heat opened a spot to hold that sentence. She nodded once and set her boots on the chalk line. Outside, riders shifted in the snow. The elder tapped his cane like he wanted time to turn around. The governor's man stood very still, ring bright and useless. "More," she said. He kept naming. The school treasurer. The mill owner's wife, who ordered girls for a feast and sent them home with bruises hidden under shawls. The postmaster who stalled letters until nights were over. The banker's brother, who kept the jail keys and lent them like favors. Words rose, struck, and branded the rafters. Scarves curled at the edges, but did not catch. The heat listened, a wall that made liars small. "Read the last line," she said. The sheriff opened the old letter with wet hands. Ink lifted like it knew the way. He read steady. "The well holds what the town won't." The wall sighed. The lantern that had tipped went dark. Smoke finally drew a thin thread up into the rafters, late and tired. The heat stepped back like a verdict finished. The barn kept the names, black in its bones. She took the baby and felt his breath steady under her chin. The boy poked his head from the cowboy's coat, hair singed, eyes wide, alive. She let him see her face up close so he knew fear could sit still and not run him. The women lifted more buckets, because habit can be holy. The governor's man stared at his ring and found no law stored in it. The elder sat with a soft sound and set his cane down like a promise he couldn't keep. The sheriff stood smaller than the wall had made him, but the star on his chest held true. "We keep saying them," she said. At the door, the sheriff answered. The cowboy rolled his shoulders and tightened the coat around both children. "If they bring knots, I bring water. If they bring guns," she said, "bring the badge you buried." He touched the star. Riders shouted outside. Snow sifted in like dust turned gentle. The barn waited, warm where the words had burned, cold where the night pressed. She lifted her voice toward the open doors. "Count." Dawn came thin over ash that still held the barn's outline. She dragged the half-charred ledger to the well and set the baby in a crate by the stones. She lowered the book in the bucket to cool the brittle pages. The rope felt like old hair, stiff with frost. When the bucket met water, a hum rose from below, low and steady, like breath under ice. She leaned over and listened. The cowboy watched the road. The governor's seal shone on a ring in the shade. Women lined the square, scarves tight, faces set. She lifted the ledger and let the black water run. Letters held their shape. The baby hid. She steadied the crate with her boot. "Listen," she said. The governor's man frowned. To what you buried," she said. The cowboy added. "To what we dig up." The women said together, "We're not done." The hum took their words and pushed them back heavier. She opened the book where the sheriff's hand had turned into fences. He cleared his throat. "I was told to obey." "By who?" she asked. "Blood older than mine," he said. The cowboy didn't blink. "Whose ring?" The sheriff looked at the seal. "The seal you fear?" She held the book over the well. Sound climbed through wet paper and ash. She felt her mother at her shoulder, and a girl whose voice never reached a porch, and a boy coughing in rain. She did not see them. The governor's men stepped back. "Count," she said. The sheriff let names fall. A parson, a deputy, an auction man, a banker, a school chair, a foreman, a clerk who kept the wrong line straight, a postmaster who slowed letters until nights were over, a wife who ordered girls and sent them home with bruises. He spoke dates and prices. The governor's man raised his ring. "This is theater," he said. "This is a ledger," she said. "This is a well," the sheriff said. "This is a town that learned to hear," the cowboy said. The women said, "We're not done." The sheriff reached for a pencil. "I will add what isn't written. Start with titles," she said. "Sexton, miller, doctor who looked away, banker's brother who lent keys like favors, foreman who docked pay and called it charity, and the house at the top that traded quiet for grain." "You'll drown this town," the governor's man said. "Then it can learn to swim," she answered. She dipped a curling corner. Water hissed and cooled it flat. The baby reached and caught the twine. Snow ticked in the silence. "Post it," the cowboy said. "At the door," the sheriff answered. "At the barn after," she said. "At the ridge last," the cowboy added. The governor's men stepped back again from the hum they could not buy. "You have no court," the ring-bearer said. "We have a count," she said. "We have a well that remembers," the sheriff said. "We have bones that burned in names," the cowboy said. The women said, "We're not done." A boy from the night before stood by the trough, one boot untied, hair singed. He stared at the bucket as if it might talk. She tied his lace. "You heard it too," she said. He nodded. "It said breathe," he whispered. "Do that," she said. The sheriff wrapped the ledger in burlap, dipped the bundle once more, and tied it. He placed it in a grain sack and shouldered the weight. "Carry this," she told him. "To which door first?" "The courthouse," she said. "Then the school," the cowboy added. "Then the bank," a woman said. "All of them," the sheriff answered. "Listen," she said again. The well answered with a draw, unlike wind. She felt the ground take weight. She felt the town lean. The governor's men shifted because there was nothing to point guns at. "To what?" the ring-bearer asked, softer. "To what you buried," she said. "To what we dig up," the cowboy repeated. "We're not done," the women said. The sheriff held the sack. They walked. The square opened like a book that had been held shut too long. She kept one hand on the baby's crate and the other on the rope. The hum followed like a line tied from the well to her chest. The courthouse door waited plain. At the steps, she faced the town. "Hear this," she said. "We read until the paper runs out. We read until the well is quiet. We read until no one can say they did not know." The sheriff set the sack on the top step and pinned the wet burlap, so the wind could not steal it. He took out the book and raised it, cold dripping from its corners. "Law's listening," he said. "So are the dead," she answered. The cowboy set the crate by her boots and touched the badge on his chest. Men with rings stood at the edge. Women moved closer. She lifted her chin and found her voice where it had waited all her life, simple and sharp. "Count," she said. The sheriff began. Names and nights and prices walked into the morning. The hum rose and crossed the square and returned. The men with seals stepped back because the sound would not fit in any pocket they owned. The baby slept. The silence broke first, and after that the rest had no choice but to follow. The town listened hard. Morning thinned the cold. Snow slid off roofs in slow sheets, melting like a curtain dropping. She stood at the well with the baby on her hip, the letter in her fist, and a new cord she had braided. The old rope lay in a dead loop. The sheriff waited on the hall steps. The cowboy stood near, hat off, watching her. She tied the letter to the new cord with a knot she trusted and lowered it. The cord hummed. The paper touched water and paused. Ripples ticked the stone. A hum rose from the throat of the well, low and patient, like breath under ice. She listened until her mother's voice found her. "Don't drink secrets. Feed them today," she whispered. "I will." Then she said, "Listen." The governor's man frowned. "To what? To what you buried," she said. The cowboy's voice backed her. "To what we dig up." The women at the pump answered soft and sure. "We're not done." She drew the letter back. Wet but unblurred, it felt exact in her hands. She set the baby in a crate and spread the page on the stones. Her fingers shook. Her script did not. She signed her mother's name where the old page had left room, then signed her own. She wrote the day and the place. She tied the cord again, dipped the seal, and pulled the letter back before the water could claim it. Her choice, not the town's. She faced the cowboy. "We're not yours." He did not flinch. "I know. I'm yours if you want. We need a witness, not an owner." "Then I'll witness." The women echoed. "So will we." He unpinned the badge, turned it once, and laid it on the stones. He stepped away without looking back. Sun found its edge and failed. It lay small and quiet. She lifted the baby. He laughed. She nodded to the sheriff. "Open it." He set his key in the hall lock. Metal turned. The doors swung wide. Paper breathed out. The women entered first, scarves high, backs straight, boots tapping a beat. Men followed with hats in their hands. The governor's men stayed at the threshold, the ring dull in clean light. Inside, she set the baby on a table and spread the letter where the sun could find it. The sheriff put the half-charred ledger beside it. The cowboy took the doorway and stood bareheaded, a witness only. She read the letter aloud, steady and plain. The room listened. The baby slapped the table and laughed again. "Carry it," she said. "To where?" a woman asked. "To the capital," she said, "by many hands. No one owns it." The sheriff nodded. "I will not lead," he said. "I will follow." She folded the page, tied it, slipped it into a cloth sack, then into another cut from a child's blanket. She gave the sack to the oldest woman, who kissed it once and passed it on. Each woman held it for a count, then gave it to the next, until boys and men joined and the weight learned many shoulders. She stepped outside. Snow kept letting go of the roofs in slow sheets. Water ran toward the pump. She laid her palm on the well rim. "Keep the echo of names," she said. "No more curses." A small breath rose as if the well agreed. The sheriff watched her. "They will send riders," he said. "Let them ride to an open door," she said. "They will try to claim it." "They cannot own a sound," she said. He weighed his keys. "I will keep these doors open until dark," he said. The cowboy came to her side. "Say the word," he said. "Walk," she said. The line set itself. Women first, men after. The sheriff behind, the cowboy to one side, hands empty, badge left on the stones. The governor's men stepped back. Boots spoke. The sack moved hand to hand, toward the road that led past the ridge, and on toward the capital. At the edge of town she turned and faced the square. The well, the open doors, the badge quiet on the stones. The women by the steps, the men behind them, the sheriff holding an old life, the cowboy watching her. Thin streams of melt drew bright lines across the boards. "We are not leaving," she said. "We are sending." She lifted the sack once more and felt its careful weight. She gave it to two girls from the school porch. They took it like a lantern and began to walk. A farmer and his wife fell in. A clerk left his stool and joined. A widow took the cord and did not let it drag. Hands kept changing with patience. She looked at the cowboy. "We're not yours," she said again, to him, to the house on the hill, to the seal that still tried to live on men's hands. He nodded. "I know. I'm yours if you want. We need a witness, not an owner." "Then I'll witness." The women answered like a lullaby. So will we. The sheriff closed. Nothing. He stood in the doorway to keep it open. The baby tucked under her chin and hummed happy. She watched the last of the snow slide from the eaves like a curtain falling after truth had its say. The badge dulled and did not ask for a hand. She returned to the well and rested her palm on the stones. If we must, we will count again tomorrow, she said. The well kept only the echo. No longer a curse, now a vow kept. The town kept the hall doors open. The road kept the letter moving toward the capital by many hands. She held the baby and turned back to the lighted room, where the women stood ready, like a new spine in an old body, prepared to hold the weight that would come.